This video will feature two stories with horror and mystery themes. In the background, you will hear soft rain and thunder to help you relax. I hope you enjoy this content and have a good night's sleep. Elanor Harper stood on the outskirts of the small, forgotten town, gazing up at the decaying mansion that loomed like a shadow against the indigo sky. The moon cast a pallid glow over the once grand facade, its ornate windows now darkened eyes peering into the abyss. A chill wind whispered through the skeletal branches of the surrounding trees, carrying with it the tales of a haunted history. The townsfolk had warned her, those wary eyes fixed on her like a collective admonition, their hushed voices cautioning against the folly of unraveling the threads that bound the mansion to the realm of the supernatural. They spoke of Lord Archibald Blackwood, a name that echoed through generations with a weight heavier than the stone walls that held his secrets. Whispers circulated in the taverns and marketplaces, a clandestine symphony of fear that urged Elanor to reconsider her journalistic pursuit. Yet Eleanor's resolve was unyielding, fueled by a relentless pursuit of truth that eclipsed the fear that danced in the eyes of those who dared speak of the mansion. Her reputation as an investigative journalist, her pen sharper than any blade, had garnered her both respect and trepidation. She thrived on stories that lingered in the shadows, tales that sent shivers down spines and sparked the imagination. The journalist's steps echoed on the cobblestone streets as she approached the imposing gate that guarded the entrance to the mansion's grounds. Iron wrought and rusted, the gate creaked open with a mournful wail, a macabre welcome to a place shrouded in the darkness of its past. The air grew thick with a palpable tension as Elanor crossed the threshold, leaving behind the safety of the known for the enigma that awaited her within. The mansion unfolded before her, a tapestry of decay and faded grandeur. The scent of damp wood and ancient secrets filled the air as Elanor ventured through the echoing halls, her lantern casting long, wavering shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Dust danced in the ethereal glow, suspended in a perpetual dance of the forgotten. Each creak of a floorboard beneath her boots seemed to resonate with the mansion's tortured history. The portraits that adorned the walls stared down with hollow eyes, capturing moments frozen in time. Lord Blackwood and his family, their smiles concealing the darkness that lurked within their hearts. Eleanor's fingers traced the dust-covered furniture, a tactile connection to a time long past. As she explored, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The temperature dropped and a soft murmur carried on the wind, the faintest echo of whispers that danced on the edge of perception. Elanor dismissed them as products of an overactive imagination, a journalist's mind playing tricks in the eerie silence. Little did she know that with each step, the mansion awakened, its secrets stirring like phantoms in the shadows. The stage was set, and Elanor Harper had stepped into a tale that transcended the realm of the living, where the past lingered with an insatiable hunger for revelation. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow on the decaying mansion's facade. Elanor Harper approached with a determined stride, the crunch of gravel beneath her boots echoing through the silence of the desolate landscape. The once grand mansion, now a twisted relic of its former self, stood as a sentinel to forgotten secrets. A chill crawled up Eleanor's spine as she reached for the rusty doorknob. The heavy oak door groaned in protest as it creaked open, revealing a darkness that seemed to breathe within the mansion's hollow halls. The air, thick with the scent of decay, wrapped around her like a ghostly shroud. Inside, the grand entrance hall stretched before her, a cavernous space filled with shadows that seemed to dance in flickering candlelight. The only sound was the steady drip of water from a leaky ceiling, a morose metronome counting the mansion's forgotten seconds. Eleanor's steps reverberated through the emptiness as she ventured further. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors adorned the walls, their eyes following her every move. Dust hung in the air like ancient memories, reluctant to fade away. The exploration led her through corridors that twisted and turned, each corner revealing a new layer of the mansion's desolation. Tattered curtains billowed in phantom drafts, and the warped floorboards groaned beneath her weight. Yet, there was an eerie beauty in the decay, a tragic elegance that whispered of a forgotten era. As she ascended a grand staircase, the dim glow of the moonlight filtering through broken windows cast elongated shadows on the walls. It was here that the whispers began, a soft murmur that seemed to rise from the very foundations of the mansion. Words indiscernible, carried on unseen currents, as if the house itself spoke of the secrets it held. Elanor paused, her breath catching in her throat. The whispers grew more insistent, as if urging her to unlock the mysteries hidden within the mansion's crumbling walls. Undeterred, she pressed on, guided by an unrelenting curiosity that drove her deeper into the abyss. In a forgotten room, she discovered a collection of old photographs, faces frozen in time, capturing moments of joy and sorrow. The eyes of the subjects seemed to follow her, accusing and pleading, as if imploring her to uncover the truth that had long been buried. A sudden chill filled the room, and Elanor felt a presence. Something unseen but undeniably present. The whispers crescendoed, echoing tales of avarice and betrayal. It was as if the very essence of the mansion sought to communicate, to share the weight of its haunted history with the one brave enough to listen. Eleanor's skepticism wavered, replaced by a gnawing sense that the mansion itself held a consciousness, a tortured soul yearning to be heard. With each step, the abyss beckoned, promising revelations that danced on the edge between the living and the dead. The journalist, undaunted by the supernatural symphony surrounding her, pressed on, determined to unravel the secrets that lurked in the heart of the decaying mansion. The air inside the mansion hung heavy with a stifling silence, broken only by the echoes of Elanor Harper's tentative footsteps. Moonlight filtered through the tattered curtains, casting ethereal patterns on the decaying wallpaper. Candles flickered in the draft, dancing shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the mansion's grim past. As Elanor moved through the grand hallway, she couldn't shake the feeling of unseen eyes watching her every move. The portraits of long-dead Blackwood ancestors lining the walls seemed to follow her with their cold, lifeless gazes. The mansion held its breath, waiting for her to unearth its dark secrets. She entered her room to find an old, ornate mirror reflecting a distorted image of herself. As her eyes met those of her reflection, the room seemed to exhale a chilling breath. The mirror rippled with an otherworldly energy, and for a moment, Elanor saw a glimpse of a shadowy figure standing behind her. She turned, but the room held nothing but the eerie silence. Continuing her exploration, Elanor found a study, its shelves laden with dusty tomes and weathered manuscripts. One book, bound in cracked leather, caught her eye. As she opened its pages, the room seemed to shudder. The whispering intensified, a spectral chorus weaving tales of greed, betrayal, and a malevolent spirit thirsting for revenge. In the flickering candlelight, Elanor deciphered the journal entries of Lord Archibald Blackwood himself. His words dripped with venom as he chronicled his ruthless exploits and the suffering he inflicted upon the townsfolk. The room seemed to pulse with the weight of his sins. As Elanor read, the whispers crescendoed, forming into a haunting melody that reverberated through the mansion. Shadows danced on the walls, their movements synchronized with the macabre rhythm. The temperature dropped, and Eleanor's breath materialized in the cold air. Suddenly, the pages of the journal turned on their own, guided by an unseen force. The words on the pages twisted and contorted, revealing not only the deeds of Lord Blackwood, but the very essence of his malevolence. Elanor felt a chill crawl up her spine, and she questioned whether the mansion itself had become a sentient being, yearning to unburden itself of its dark history. As she closed the cursed book, the whispers subsided, leaving the mansion in an eerie stillness. the shadows retreated to their hidden corners, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted momentarily. But Elanor couldn't shake the feeling that she had opened a door to a realm beyond, inviting the spirits of the past to manifest in the present. With each step she took, the mansion seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of its own. The decaying walls whispered tales of suffering, and Elanor, now entwined with the spectral narrative, pressed on, driven by an insatiable desire to uncover the truth that lay hidden in the mansion's malevolent embrace. Elanor felt a shiver crawl down her spine as the whispers in the shadows grew more insistent. The mansion seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, reacting to her presence like a dormant beast awakening. With every step, the air thickened, laden with the weight of forgotten sins. As she entered a dimly lit chamber, the walls echoed with disembodied laughter, a haunting reminder of Lord Archibald Blackwood's decadent past. Eleanor's lantern cast eerie shadows, dancing grotesquely on the faded wallpaper that bore witness to decades of decay. The temperature dropped, and her breath formed spectral clouds in the frigid air. A distant sound, like the mournful wail of a phantom, echoed through the corridor. Eleanor's heart quickened, and she pressed forward, driven by a mix of determination and an unexplainable force, compelling her deeper into the abyss. In a grandiose hall adorned with tattered tapestries, she felt an unseen gaze upon her. The flickering candlelight revealed the specter of Lord Blackwood, his visage twisted with a malevolence that transcended the grave. His voice, a ghastly murmur, echoed through the vast emptiness. "You dare tread where the living should not, meddling in affairs long buried." His spectral voice reverberated, sending tremors through the time-worn floor. Elanor, undeterred, raised her lantern defiantly. "I seek the truth, Lord Blackwood. Your sins will not remain hidden." The walls seemed to close in as the specter circled her, a wisp of darkness taunting the flickering light. The past unfolded like a macabre tapestry, revealing Lord Blackwood's insatiable greed, his ruthless exploitation of the townsfolk, and the darkness that festered within the mansion's walls. As the ghostly narrative unfolded, Eleanor's skepticism waned, replaced by a chilling acknowledgement of the malevolence that clung to the mansion like a curse. The chamber resonated with anguished cries, and the air thickened with a palpable sorrow that seeped into her bones. "You cannot escape the consequences of your actions, Lord Blackwood," Elanor declared, her voice unwavering. The specter halted, its eyes fixing on her with an intensity that transcended the ethereal. "You think yourself a beacon of justice, but justice is a fleeting illusion. My legacy endures, and you shall bear witness to its wrath." The mansion quivered as Elanor confronted the vengeful spirit, the dialogue echoing through the haunted halls. Unseen forces tugged at the fabric of reality, intertwining the living and the dead in a macabre dance that would determine the fate of both Elanor and Lord Blackwood. The confrontation reached its zenith, leaving Elanor teetering on the precipice of revelation and peril, caught between the relentless pursuit of truth and the malevolent force that sought to consume her soul. The mansion, once a silent witness to centuries of secrets, now stirred with a malevolent energy as Elanor Harper found herself at the epicenter of a spectral battleground. The townsfolk, drawn by an invisible force, gathered outside the decaying structure. Moonlight cast long shadows, creating a ghastly audience for the unfolding drama. Elanor, her skepticism now a fragile shield against the supernatural onslaught, navigated the mansion's corridors. The air was thick with tension, each step echoing through the hollow halls, as if the very walls were whispering secrets only the dead could comprehend. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows, dancing to a rhythm set by forces beyond the realm of the living. As Elanor delved deeper, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into eerie echoes of past transgressions. The portraits lining the walls seemed to scrutinize her every move, their eyes following her like spectral sentinels, guarding long-buried secrets. A distant howl of wind through a broken window harmonized with the ethereal whispers, creating a haunting melody that reverberated through the mansion. The air turned frigid, and Eleanor's breath materialized like ghostly apparitions, each exhale a testament to the unnatural chill that gripped the atmosphere. In a dimly lit chamber, Elanor encountered a spectral manifestation, an apparition of Lord Archibald Blackwood. His figure emerged from the shadows, a ghastly silhouette with hollow eyes that bore into Eleanor's very soul. The dialogue between them unfolded as a macabre dance, the words dripping with the venom of long-held grudges. The mansion itself seemed to respond to their confrontation. Floorboards groaned beneath Eleanor's weight, and the walls pulsated with an otherworldly energy. The townsfolk outside, unwitting spectators to this spectral struggle, felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. Elanor, determined but visibly shaken, pressed Lord Blackwood for answers. The malevolent spirit, fueled by centuries of resentment, lashed out with visions of past atrocities, images that clawed at Eleanor's sanity. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp as the battleground transcended the boundaries between the corporeal and the ethereal. The townsfolk, sensing the disturbance, whispered amongst themselves. Their breaths, visible in the chilly night air, formed an unintended chorus to the ghostly symphony within the mansion. Fear and awe painted their faces as they bore witness to a confrontation that blurred the line between the living and the dead. As the tension reached its zenith, the mansion quivered as if struggling under the weight of its own history. Elanor, caught in the maelstrom of supernatural forces, stood her ground. The climax of this otherworldly conflict loomed, and with it, the revelation that would reshape not only the decaying mansion, but the very fabric of Eleanor's understanding of the world. Dread hung thick in the air as Elanor stood in the heart of the decaying mansion, facing the embodiment of Lord Archibald Blackwood's malevolence. The flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows, dancing on the crumbling walls like ethereal specters as the night pressed on, bringing with it an eerie silence. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Eleanor's breaths echoed in the desolate chamber. The very walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy, as though the mansion itself were a living entity harboring the sins of the past. In the dim light, Lord Blackwood's spectral figure materialized, his eyes burning with a malevolent glow. "Curiosity led you here, journalist." His voice resonated, carrying the weight of centuries. "Old bitterness, but you have no idea of the depths you've uncovered." Elanor, her nerves on edge, steadied herself, determined to face the truth, no matter how terrifying. "Your secrets won't stay hidden any longer. The town deserves to know the darkness that lurks within these walls." As she spoke, the temperature plummeted, and the room seemed to constrict around her. The very air became oppressive, laden with the weight of Lord Blackwood's sins. Images of his corrupt deeds flashed before Eleanor's eyes, a grim montage of avarice and cruelty. "You think you can expose me and leave unscathed?" Lord Blackwood's voice resonated through the cavernous space, a chilling whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls. "I will not allow it." The walls themselves seemed to groan, as if protesting the imminent revelation. Elanor, however, pressed forward, driven by a sense of justice and an unyielding will to bring the truth to light. With each step, the whispers in the shadows crescendoed, revealing the tortured history of Lord Blackwood's dark reign. Eleanor's flashlight flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls, mirroring the unseen dance of ghosts from the past. As the climax approached, Elanor uncovered a secret room concealed behind a tapestry, its entrance obscured for decades. Within, she found a journal detailing Lord Blackwood's descent into madness, his nefarious deals, and the cursed rituals that bound him to the mansion, even in death. The malevolent spirit, realizing the imminent exposure, unleashed a torrent of spectral energy. The very foundations of the mansion quivered As if resisting the truth being unearthed, Elanor, holding the journal like a talisman, recited an incantation that shattered the spectral chains binding Lord Blackwood to the mortal realm. The climax unfolded as the room convulsed, and the walls seemed to bleed shadows. Lord Blackwood's vengeful spirit writhed in agony, its ghastly form dissipating into the ethereal abyss. The mansion, no longer burdened by the weight of his malevolence, began to crumble around them. Elanor, guided by a haunting glow, stumbled out of the collapsing mansion just as the first rays of dawn painted the horizon. Behind her, the once imposing structure collapsed in on itself, taking Lord Blackwood's spirit with it. As she emerged breathless and shaken, the townsfolk stared in awe at the smoldering ruins. The truth had been unveiled, and the town was left to grapple with the aftermath. Elanor, forever changed by the harrowing night, felt the weight of Lord Blackwood's legacy lifting, yet the echoes of his malevolence lingered in the whispers of the shadows. The airport echoed with the weary shuffle of travelers, the cold fluorescent lights casting a pallid glow on the linoleum floor. Among the huddled masses, Emma Harper moved with the purpose of a seasoned traveler, her travel, worn backpack slung casually over one shoulder. Her eyes, however, betrayed a subtle hint of excitement, a glimmer of anticipation that danced within their depths. The red-eye flight to London awaited, a promise of new adventures and untold stories. As Emma boarded the aging jumbo jet, she couldn't shake the feeling that the airplane itself held secrets, its worn upholstery whispering tales of countless journeys across the vast expanse of the sky. The cabin was a curious blend of nostalgia and modernity, an eclectic mishmash of eras that left a surreal imprint on the atmosphere. The overhead bins creaked with the weight of carry. Awns and the hum of conversation filled the confined space, punctuated by the occasional laughter of tired but hopeful souls. Emma navigated the narrow aisle, her fingers grazing the worn armrests, as if seeking reassurance from the metallic frame that would carry her across the ocean. Her seat, 23, awaited her like a portal to the unknown. As she settled into the window seat, her gaze scanned the faces of fellow passengers, their expressions ranging from exhaustion to subdued excitement. Yet, amidst the familiar sea of humanity, one figure stood out. Seated in the aisle seat next to Emma, Mr. Blackwood seemed an ordinary man, his gray hair neatly combed, and a faint smile playing on his lips. However, his eyes held a depth that transcended the mundane. When Emma's gaze met his, a chill crept down her spine, a fleeting sensation of being seen, not just observed. The ambient lighting within the cabin dimmed, casting the jumbo jet into a perpetual twilight. A soft murmur of conversation surrounded Emma, but the distant hum of the engines provided an ominous undertone. The airplane taxied, the metallic groans of the wheels on the runway, signaling the beginning of their journey into the eternal night. As the plane ascended, leaving the ground far below, Emma's eyes fixated on the window. The city lights blurred into a sprawling tapestry, the world below transformed into a canvas of unknown stories. The cabin lights dimmed further, and the passengers settled into an uneasy calm, their silhouettes framed by the muted glow of overhead screens. In the quietude of the cabin, Emma couldn't escape the feeling that the flight held a secret, a tale waiting to unfold. She stole a sidelong glance at Mr. Blackwood, his gaze fixed ahead, seemingly lost in the rhythmic hum of the engines. Little did Emma know that this red-eye journey held more than the promise of London. It held the key to a darkness that lurked within the confines of the airplane's metal embrace. The cabin was draped in an artificial twilight as the dim overhead lights cast elongated shadows across the worn carpeted aisle. Weary passengers filed in, each dragging their own tale of exhaustion, leaving the air tinned with a blend of jet fuel and anticipation. In this cocoon of antiquity, Emma Harper found her seat, a solitary haven nestled among a sea of indifferent faces. Little did she know that her brief respite would be shattered by an encounter that defied all reason. Seated beside her was a man named Mr. Blackwood, a figure of quiet elegance whose presence seemed to absorb the very essence of the dimly lit space. His eyes, the color of obsidian, bore into Emma's with an intensity that hinted at depths untouched by the mundane concerns of the journey. Despite the hum of conversation and the distant rumble of engines, a chilling silence emanated from him. The first brush of awareness came when Emma noticed that other passengers, ordinarily lost in the inertia of travel, exchanged furtive glances and cautious whispers in his presence. It was as if Mr. Blackwood had become an unspoken focal point, a catalyst for the subtle unease that had begun to permeate the cabin. When Emma questioned the flight attendants about the enigmatic stranger, she was met with polite dismissal and veiled concern. "He's been on the flight from the beginning," they claimed, their forced smiles barely masking a sense of disquiet. Yet Emma's memory, keen from years of observation as a travel journalist, failed to recall Mr. Blackwood during the boarding process. As Emma settled into her seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that the man beside her existed on the periphery of normality. His clothing, immaculate yet anachronistic, suggested a timeless quality that defied the boundaries of the present. The subtle scent of antiquity clung to him, a fragrance of ancient secrets whispered through the ages. Their first exchange, polite but pregnant with an unspoken tension, set the stage for the inexplicable events that would unfold. Mr. Blackwood spoke in measured tones, revealing nothing while implying everything. Inquiries about his journey and destination were met with vague responses, each word carrying an elusive weight that lingered in the air. Yet it was the boarding pass, inconspicuous in its simplicity, that unveiled the first layer of mystery. Etched upon it was a symbol, an intricate pattern that seemed to dance with a life of its own. Emma's fingers traced the lines, the cool touch of paper revealing a connection to ancient folklore and arcane symbolism. As the hours passed, the cabin's subdued hum transformed into a symphony of whispers. Subtle murmurs emanated from the shadows, indiscernible yet pregnant with a malevolent energy. Emma found herself caught between the mundane and the supernatural, teetering on the edge of a revelation that eluded her grasp. In the confines of the jumbo jet hurtling through the abyss of the night sky, Emma Harper's encounter with Mr. Blackwood became a nexus of uncertainty, a moment that unraveled the fabric of reality and hinted at the impending horrors that awaited her on this transatlantic journey. The stage was set, the players in place, and shadows whispered secrets that would soon be unveiled in the eternal night. The cabin of the jumbo jet was bathed in a dim, ethereal glow as the night pressed on, stretching its infinite fingers across the Atlantic. Emma Harper, nestled into her seat, felt the subtle vibrations of the engines beneath her. The ambient hum created an illusion of normalcy, a deceptive shroud over the growing unease that clung to her like a phantom. Her fingers traced the surface of the armrest, now worn and frayed, a tactile reminder of the countless journeys undertaken by the aging aircraft. With every subtle creak and groan, the plane seemed to whisper secrets of the countless souls it had carried through the vast expanse of the night. Emma's ears caught a symphony of hushed murmurs, a dissonant melody that played in harmony with the hum of the engines. At first, she dismissed them as the remnants of conversations muted by fatigue. Yet these whispers carried an otherworldly quality, ethereal tendrils weaving through the air, eluding comprehension. A flicker of uncertainty danced in Emma's eyes as she turned to her neighboring passengers. Their faces, shadowed by the dim cabin lights, bore the fatigue of transatlantic travel, but none seemed privy to the spectral whispers that invaded her senses. Their obliviousness only intensified Emma's growing isolation. As she attempted to engage a flight attendant, her words fell on ears seemingly deaf to the haunting undertones of the night. The attendant, with a rehearsed smile, reassured Emma that fatigue often played tricks on the mind at such altitudes. The dismissive words only heightened Emma's sense of foreboding. The dimmed overhead lights, once a comforting beacon against the abyss outside, began to flicker erratically. Shadows danced upon the cabin walls, their movements synchronized with the enigmatic whispers that now lingered in the air like forgotten echoes. Emma clutched the armrest, her knuckles turning pale as the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred before her eyes. She looked to Mr. Blackwood, her mysterious seatmate, his demeanor undisturbed by the disquiet that gripped her, his gaze unwavering, met hers briefly before returning to the abyss beyond the small airplane window. A knowing smirk played on his lips, an acknowledgement of a shared secret that Emma was yet to comprehend. As the whispers crescendoed, Emma Harper found herself suspended in a moment of eerie stillness, enveloped by the enigma of the night. The thin veil between the known and unknown seemed to flutter, teasingly close, yet impenetrably distant. The red-eye flight had become a vessel hurtling through a realm where shadows whispered secrets that defied understanding, and Emma was left to navigate the darkness alone. The dim glow of the airplane cabin accentuated the wear and tear of the aging jumbo jet. Emma Harper sat in her cramped seat, her fingers tracing the intricate symbols on Mr. Blackwood's boarding pass. Each stroke seemed to tell a story, one entwined with ancient folklore and whispered legends. The soft hum of the engines provided a backdrop for Emma's growing unease. The symbols on the boarding pass appeared to form a sigil, an emblem with a malevolent history. A shiver crept down Emma's spine as she delved into her research, fingers dancing over the keys of her laptop. As she combed through archives and obscure websites, a pattern emerged. The sigil was no mere coincidence. It was a mark linked to aviation disasters, a dark omen etched in the shadows of history. Emma's breath caught as she uncovered accounts of past flights marked by the same sinister symbol, their stories lost in the vastness of the Atlantic. The realization hung in the air, a thick fog of dread enveloping Emma. The symbols were a harbinger of doom, a connection between the supernatural and the tangible. The boundaries of reality seemed to blur as she connected the dots, the rhythmic pulse of the engines now a foreboding heartbeat. Other passengers remained oblivious, engrossed in their in-flight entertainment or lost in the embrace of sleep. Emma glanced around, her eyes pleading for acknowledgement, but she was met with indifferent gazes. The isolation deepened, the cabin becoming a claustrophobic cocoon of ignorance. A sudden turbulence jolted the plane, causing anxiety to ripple through the passengers. Emma clutched her laptop, the screen flickering ominously as if mirroring the disturbance within her. Shadows danced across the aisle, their movements synchronized with the turbulence, creating an unsettling choreography. She returned her focus to the symbols, now etched into her mind like a nightmarish tattoo. The sigil whispered tales of tragedy, weaving a narrative of despair that echoed through the history of aviation. The confines of the airplane cabin felt like a prison, the air thick with the weight of impending doom. As the turbulence subsided, Emma's realization settled like a stone in her stomach. The symbols were a gateway to a realm where the laws of the known world crumbled. With every passing minute, the malevolence embedded in the sigil reached out, entwining the flight in a sinister dance with the supernatural. Emma's eyes met Mr. Blackwood's, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. The symbols on his boarding pass were not just markings. They were a conduit for forces beyond comprehension. The plane hurtled through the night, carrying with it a payload of ancient dread, and Emma could feel the thin veil between the known and unknown trembling, threatening to rupture at any moment. The hum of the plane's engines melded with the disconcerting symphony of whispers, creating an ominous harmony that hung in the air. Emma's pulse quickened as she approached Mr. Blackwood, his inscrutable gaze fixed on her. The cabin, once a haven of tired travelers, now felt like a battleground between unseen forces. She planted herself in the narrow aisle, determination overshadowing her fear. "What do you know?" Emma demanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a knife. The passengers nearby, captivated by the unfolding drama, cast furtive glances at the duo. Mr. Blackwood's lips curled into a sly smile, and his eyes gleamed with an ancient knowing. "Ah, Mins. Harper, the threads of fate weave a complex tapestry. Do you not sense the forces at play? The delicate balance disrupted by your very presence?" The whispers intensified, swirling around Emma like ethereal tendrils. Shadows danced on the cabin walls, taking on grotesque shapes that mirrored the turmoil within. A collective unease gripped the passengers, their eyes reflecting the palpable fear. Enough cryptic nonsense. Emma's frustration fueled her courage. "What is happening here? What do you want?" Mr. Blackwood's demeanor shifted, a fleeting glint of irritation replacing his composed facade. "Want, my dear, is a simple concept. I seek to fulfill a destiny long foretold. As for what is happening, can you not feel it? The collision of realms, the thinning of the veil between the known and unknown." As he spoke, the shadows seemed to coalesce around him, forming a spectral aura that both repelled and fascinated. The plane trembled with an unseen force, and a collective gasp escaped the passengers. A flight attendant rushed to Emma's side, her eyes wide with terror. "We must contain this," the flight attendant whispered, her voice trembling. "Your confrontation is unraveling the very fabric of reality." Emma glanced around, realizing that the other passengers were experiencing their own manifestations of horror. A man clutched at the air, as if warding off invisible assailants, while a woman cringed at phantasmagoric shapes only she could see. As the chaos unfolded, Emma locked eyes with Mr. Blackwood, resolve hardening within her. "I won't let you plunge us into darkness. Whatever you are, this ends now." The cabin quivered, as if caught in the throes of a cosmic battle. Shadows lunged and recoiled, responding to the clash of wills between Emma and Mr. Blackwood. The whispers reached a crescendo, a cacophony of voices from forgotten realms. In that pivotal moment, Emma summoned a strength she never knew she possessed. With a determined stare, she challenged the encroaching darkness, determined to sever the ties that bound the plane to the malevolent forces at play. The climax of the supernatural confrontation loomed, and the fate of everyone on board hung in the balance as the battleground of shadows unfolded at 30,000 feet above the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Atlantic. The cabin quivered with an otherworldly tension, as Emma's trembling fingers clutched the ancient book she discovered in the plane's forgotten storage compartment. The dim light overhead flickered, casting an irregular dance of shadows that seemed to respond to the eerie whispers permeating the air. In the stillness of the confined space, Emma faced Mr. Blackwood with a mixture of dread and determination. His eyes, like pools of darkness, reflected the malevolence of the force that held them captive at 30,000 feet. As Emma spoke, the incantations she deciphered from the cryptic symbols, the atmosphere thickened with an unnatural energy. The plane seemed to shudder in response, a symphony of creaks and groans echoing through the cabin, as if the very metal were alive. The shadows, once subtle and elusive, coalesced into tangible forms that slithered along the aisles like ethereal serpents. Passengers, previously oblivious to the impending nightmare, now recoiled in terror, their eyes wide with disbelief. Emma's voice rose, resonating with ancient power, and the symbols on Mr. Blackwood's boarding pass glowed an ominous red. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, and the plane became a battleground for unseen forces. The boundary between the known and the supernatural blurred, reality bending like a fragile reed in a tempest. As the climax approached, Emma's vision blurred, and the cabin became a kaleidoscope of nightmarish images. Passengers, their faces contorted with fear, huddled together in desperation. The plane itself seemed to twist and contort, the walls closing in on Emma, amplifying the suffocating horror. And then, with a sudden, deafening roar, the veil was lifted. Reality fractured, revealing the true nature of the forces at play. Spectral entities swirled around the cabin, their haunting wails reverberating through the air. The airplane became a vessel hurtling through the corridors of the supernatural, a vessel with Emma at its helm. In that moment of revelation, Mr. Blackwood's form wavered, his inscrutable expression cracking for the briefest of moments. Emma glimpsed the depths of his malevolence, a darkness that transcended the physical form. The boundaries of time and space seemed to bend and twist, merging past and present into a surreal tapestry of terror. As the plane approached London, the supernatural forces began to recede, retreating like a tide. Emma, drained and disoriented, clung to the edge of sanity. The once menacing shadows dissipated, leaving only the residual echoes of the supernatural battle that had unfolded at 30,000 feet. In the eerie calm that followed, Mr. Blackwood vanished into the dissipating shadows, leaving no trace of his enigmatic presence. Emma disembarked, her footsteps on solid ground feeling both reassuring and surreal. The boundary between the known and unknown remained as delicate as ever, the thin veil between reality and the supernatural, a lingering specter haunting her every thought. And so, as the plane touched down in London, Emma Harper stepped onto the solid ground of an airport terminal, forever changed by the flight of shadows that had transcended the ordinary and plunged her into the heart of a horror beyond imagination.